Josh Heupel has a major decision to make. There isn't going to be any Joey Aguilar, but with a young quarterback, whoever it may be, should fans have a different expectation? Let's talk Vols.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into this crossover of Locked On Vols and Locked On the Portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, along with my buddy, Eric Cain. This is going to be a fun one, Eric. We have all kinds of interesting things to discuss, considering a random court ruling. How random do you really think that is? Obviously being facetious. Appreciate everybody stopping in and making this your first listen each and every day right here on the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, Locked On. We are brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The 26th schedule. I'll admit, as soon as I found out Aguilar was not going to be the quarterback, I immediately pulled it up. But I was starting to look at it. We're going to get Eric's take on the first half of the schedule through the bye week and then the back half. It's intriguing. I've got one game circled. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Who are going to be the playmakers to help whichever quarterback, whether it's Faizon Brandon or whether it's somebody else, that really have to step up beyond somebody like Staley? I want to talk to Eric about that. But overall, the number one theme, I think, although I don't think this will happen, the Vols fans should change their expectations for 2026. And you and I both know that probably won't happen. Eric, give me your take. What do you think is going to happen if they struggle in SEC games? And again, I'll throw up the schedule in a second to make it official. Are they going to be realistic, or is it going to be a bunch of mad people if things don't go well?
No, again, I say this. I mean, we should put this on T-shirts because my everydayers and listeners probably get so sick of me saying this. But the phrase is, fan is short for fanatic. I mean, we are unrealistic. We are passionate, and that's what makes the sport so beautiful and annoying at the same time, and amazing, and the best thing in the entire world. No, I mean, people are going to, if the season does not go the way that you expect it to, if you're not competitive in big games, if you're not realistic with at least, I mean, people will be upset with 8 wins because Tennessee just had 8 wins this year. But like, if things go wrong, 7-5 stuff like that, people are going to be so upset. You know, despite having a true freshman quarterback or a redshirt freshman quarterback that has hardly ever played. You know, the conversation, I think you and I maybe even touched on this, you know, when Nico left, and the thought was, well, will Tennessee fans give Heupel a mulligan this year? Not a mulligan, but a lot of people are like, yeah, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But heck, no, it didn't matter who the quarterback was, and it turned out to be okay with Joey Aguilar. But you lose that third Saturday in October to Alabama, I mean, there's going to be people that are upset and livid and everything. So, yeah, expectations are not going to change, and it's different because you used to have these quote-unquote reload or rebuilding years on the offense when you have a new quarterback and all that. But now with the portal, a lot of those times are just kind of extinct because you go out and get a veteran quarterback. And, you know, Tennessee's done that in the past and certainly tried to do that with Sam Leavitt. That's not going to happen. Tennessee's going to roll with the young guys. So I think that it's cool no matter what anybody says in the spring, like not a mulligan year because Tennessee's going to be better than that. But I think they're, you know, yeah, we'll be patient with Heupel. We'll be patient with these young quarterbacks. No, you lose that first game that you're supposed to win, and there's going to be people that are be frustrated because fan is short for fanatic.
It's ironic. I use that phrase a lot here on the Portal podcast, Eric, and it's unfortunate, but that probably symbolizes a lot of things in society, not even just sport, but in anything.
Yeah.
People are so competitive, they don't look at reality. And when you don't look at reality, bad things tend to happen. So with that in mind, I just want to throw this up here. I circled the Texas game on the schedule. This is the first part of UT's schedule. Furman should be a win. I trust Georgia Tech to at least give Tennessee I have no idea what Tech's going to do. Haynes King was as part of a program as anybody in college football the last few years. He was amazing, but they're losing him. And more importantly, in some ways, they're losing Buster Faulkner. He took the backup quarterback with himself down to Gainesville. So I have no idea what's going to happen there. But even if they start 3-0, they got Texas. So I want to pose this question. Arch is coming in. Obviously, you got the family tie because his uncle is none other than Peyton Manning. Yeah. But if they get stomped in that game, like if it's 24-7, their defense is going to be nasty, and they beat up on a freshman or redshirt freshman quarterback. How do you look at things there specifically? You and I agree there's going to be some fans, no matter what, they're not going to accept it. Those people were done with the conversation because they're steadfast. What about the rational, if there are any, Tennessee fans? How do they? And it's not a Tennessee thing. This is Texas. This is Georgia. This is USC. This is Ohio State. Anybody? How do you hedge your bets? Because like they got. If you wanted to say, name your top 2 receivers for any team in the SEC, the Vols are right there with anybody.
Yeah.
Staley and Matt, sign me up. That's conservatively top 4. I'll just throw that. Make very, very conservative. That's top 4. It might be number 1 in the top 2 guys. So how do you change your expectations? Because for those that don't know, this is not a complex offense. It's about as simple as it gets. So it's the best scenario, but it's still a freshman or redshirt freshman. What do you say?
And I mean, Tennessee made some tweaks to the offense last year, and I think it really benefited. And will there be more tweaks made to fit a Faizon or a George MacIntyre? I don't know. We'll see. And certainly, I know we can talk about this more in a moment. You're right. I mean, you're stepping into a situation to where you're going to have Nico did not have any weapons. It felt like George MacIntyre, G-Mac, or Faizon. They're going to have a ton of weapons. 2 great wide receivers, a really good tight end, an offensive line that has played a ton of football, a 1,000-yard rusher in the backfield. So you're going to be set up for some success and all that. So maybe that, changes some expectations a little bit. But to your point on the Texas game, I think it depends on how the Georgia Tech game goes, because for all intents and purposes, you should roll over Furman and Kennesaw State, even though shout out Jerry Mack, what a year he just had at Kennesaw State, former Heupel assistant here at Tennessee from 21 to 22. Or 21 to 23. Anyway, first couple of years. But for all intents and purposes, you should handle those teams. Georgia Tech, I think Tennessee's going to beat that team because I think Tennessee's better top to bottom on the roster. But how does your starter perform in those games? If you're struggling and then you just get blitzed in the Texas game, maybe that would be incentive to make a move after that. Maybe they play both of those quarterbacks early on. I hope not, but maybe they do. Maybe they play both those quarterbacks in the Texas game. I don't know. That Texas game is only game number 1 in the SEC. So part of me is like, well, you need to give whoever the starter is a chance. But I think it has to depend on some of those earlier games, Georgia Tech specifically. How does your starter perform? And then if it's not too well and you go out there and turn the football over 3 or 4 times in a loss to Texas, then yeah, I think there'll be some motivation to go to the other guy. Also, how close is this quarterback battle? I mean, we're all just thinking it's going to be so close right now because they're both young and hadn't played. Does one separate themselves significantly in fall camp and leave fall camp saying, clearly this is the guy, the other guy's not ready? I think that changes some things as well. But that Texas game for sure, even though it's game number 1 in the SEC, you look behind it, you got some winnable football games. Auburn, you should beat at home, okay? Arkansas, Tennessee hasn't won many games at Arkansas lately. Hadn't played many games there. You should win that game. And then, of course, you got Alabama after that. So I think that Texas game is certainly interesting.
Yeah, it changes a lot of things because, even take the Texas game out of it. I mean, by the way, I'm going to pick Texas in that one. Just news flash. I'm sure about everybody.
I think a lot of people will.
The Auburn game I had originally circled as a W for the Vols. They're going to have the veteran quarterback, a guy that knows it's going to be the same offense going against each other on each sideline, and that, which is ironic because Alex Golish, former Tennessee assistant, went to USF. Now he's at Auburn. He's bringing his quarterback in. So it just shows you how different it is. And I hate making college football like the NFL. Like if you watch ESPN or Fox or anything else, the only thing they talk about are quarterbacks. Yeah. It's not that bad because the rules in pro are so offensive generated. But if you have freshman quarterbacks, you can sit back and in whatever coverage you want, make them read zone, and it's usually not going to work well for them. And like Auburn, even Arkansas, which their defense last year was abysmal, it's still an SEC defense. They brought in a bunch of kids. If you give them a little hope early in that game, and again, like you said, playing at they got some crazy fans.
Yeah,
it can happen. It can be very, very difficult. So I think that Georgia Tech game that you mentioned earlier, even if they lost, they have to show they can move the ball, and there's got to be some confidence. I think they'll beat Tech like you do because they lost too much. But your first game being there at Bobby, that's not a lock. So now if Aguilar was playing in that game, I would say Tennessee 38-20. Yeah. They'd win by a couple of scores. That game will probably be 7-point game. I'm still picking Tennessee, but it really just shows you how awkward it is to be the coach when you've got a freshman or redshirt freshman. there is no guarantee. They're going to have to adjust their expectations for throwing the deep ball, which Tennessee has been great at. By the way, Aguilar was really good at it. And now all of a sudden, Vols fans are going to be like, that run game better be good. But I think it'll be top, kind of like the receivers. Tennessee's running back room is in a great spot. You and I have discussed that before on this show. So I'm not really all that concerned about what the Vols are going to do in that regards. But I am very, very happy that Mike, I'm going to talk a little more about Faizon Brandon when we come back, because I got to know him the last couple of years at Elite 11, et cetera, Future 50. I think that he will eventually be the quarterback, and who are going to be some of the other playmakers. We're going to talk about that next right here on this crossover Locked On Vols and our friends over at TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. TurboTax is full service. You can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person to connect online. So whether you got your just normal W-2s, whether you're 1099, if you have deductions, maybe you got married, maybe you sold your house, let TurboTax handle all of it. For a limited time, you can also have your taxes done by a local expert, $150 all in. If you didn't have your taxes done by TurboTax last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment with TurboTax today. Thank you very much for making Locked On the Portal and Locked On Vols a part of your day each and every day. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check the description down below in the box. It's pretty simple, folks. $5 a month or $50 for the year. Your audio will have no ads. And there is a Discord. Just check it out in the description below. All right, Eric. I mentioned a minute ago that I was very high on Faizon Brandon. 5-star. He was number 3 by On3. Or no, I think he was 3 by 24/7. Number 9 by On3. One or the other, but top 10 by everybody.
Yeah.
Personality off the field. The ability to be very humble, like he's as easy an interview as I've done in the last 5 years. Most kids like him are not like that. I can assure you as a recruiting analyst. I think Vol fans are going to like him. I think those things will help him assimilate not only to the offense, the coaching staff, but his teammates. It is my prediction that at the latest, he will be the quarterback for the Vols starter in early October. Have you heard anything that goes against what I just said? Anything you want to rebuke there or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we haven't seen him practice yet. Spring practice is going to begin, I think, March the 13th, so a couple more weeks, and I think we'll have a better idea. Once you get a week or two in, it's not certainly solidified or anything, but we just don't know right now. Is what I'm trying to say. I mean, Faizon was an incredible high school talent. Not injury prone, suffered an injury his senior year, missed pretty much the entire year, but came back for the last couple of games and led him to another state title. Again. It's high school football. I understand he played some pretty good high school football, but it's high school football. You go look at his stats and just incredible. It kind of fits the mold of what a high school quarterback is. A lot of tutties, hardly any turnovers. I mean, you're talking about a junior season where he threw 35 touchdowns and had 2 interceptions. A sophomore, 36 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The guy doesn't turn the football over, which I think bodes well because typically outside of Joey Aguilar, Tennessee quarterbacks don't turn the football over. But again, we haven't seen him in this system yet. We haven't seen him against the speed of a defense yet. We just don't know. And even once you get into spring ball and you see it a little bit and you hear some reactions, we're still not going to know based on seeing other SEC level defenses week after week. So I think we'll have a better picture and a better understanding of what that'll be, sometime in spring, certainly back in the fall. But of the two, him and George MacIntyre and even Ryan Staub, who came over from Colorado, who has more experience, not a lot, but more experience than both these guys combined. He's significantly got the higher ceiling. He has the best attributes. He's the real deal. He kind of checks all the boxes. It's just a matter of how quickly can he get adapted, how farther along is George MacIntyre and in his step. I mean, obviously, this is kind of telling here. I mean, Tennessee went after Sam Levitt in the portal season. They brought Bo Prabula in, and they passed on him. Like, I understand – I mean, maybe that's the wrong decision. We'll find out. But they literally was like, we don't think it's going to be a fit. We're just going to roll with these young guys. I mean, I'm not saying Bo Prabula is a Heisman candidate, but he's a starter in the SEC. Like that says something to me. So maybe Maybe George MacIntyre takes that next step, so we'll see. But I think, Faizon's got everything you want in a quarterback and doesn't turn the football over. Just how quickly can he get adjusted to the speed of the game? Because we know this defense is in the Southeastern Conference very, very fast.
Absolutely. The windows, as they say, close rather quickly.
Yes.
If you're throwing an out pattern, throw it on time. So
Yeah.
who are some of the playmakers beyond the obvious here? Like Staley had 68 catches, 837 and 6 scores. Mike Matthews, 53 catches, 813 and 4 scores. Besides those two, is there any young receiver? Is there anybody else? I know they got Hodge coming in, a few other guys that you think that UT fans need to know about. Who can help him? And it could be a lineman too. Is there anybody that Vols fans need to know about to help this offense?
Who'd you say they have coming in?
Hodge, he's one of the guys coming in. He's a receiver. He played at Colorado. I knew him. He was in high school.
Oh, okay, gotcha. The transfer, yeah. I think he's a depth piece. But back to your point, I heard you say Hodge. I'm like, who are you talking about? I was like, did I miss something? Tristan Keys, man, you know all about Tristan Keys. Yeah, 5-star wide receiver. Typically, Tennessee doesn't play young wide receivers. Typically, Tennessee doesn't play a lot of wide receivers. When this thing's humming, you play 3 wide receivers, you got a 4th that's ready to come in, and he'll get a little bit of time. Does that change? I think Rodarius Jackson, freshman last year from the Memphis area, underrated in the recruiting process, came on, did a lot of good things, at practice, did a couple of things in games, but I think he's in line to kind of step up and take over for Chris Brazzell. But what does Tristan Keys have to say about that? And if he is the 4th, does he change that rotation of wide receiver? I think he's got so much athletic ability. It's going to be a good one. Running back DeSean Bishop, he's a 1,000-yard rusher, and for Tennessee last year, a former walk-on from Carnes High School just right down the road here. Incredible story. The rushing numbers still good last year, mind you, over 2,200 yards. Josh Heupel and staff have rushed for over 2,000 yards every year he's been here. The first 4 years, over 2,500 yards. But they didn't run it as much last year. You know why? Because you had a quarterback that could consistently throw over 300 yards a game. And so his numbers are looking a little worse than Dylan Sampson, but it's because they didn't run it as much. But again, quarterback's best friend, a young quarterback's best friend, is a solid run game. You couple that, they went and got Gordon from Tulane, who was really good as a true freshman last year. You got DeJuan Morris, another Tennessee guy from the mid-state that the staff loves. So I like what they have at running back. And then on the offensive line, again, guys that come in, is Ori Williams from LSU going to be the starter at right tackle? We'll see. David Sanders is going to flip over to the left side, a former 5-star. And, if Williams doesn't step in and be the right tackle, you've got versatility on the offensive line. Jesse Perry could bump out, and you could bring in a guy off the bench in this scenario who started like 9 games for Tennessee last year. There's so much experience on the offensive line. So if it's Faizon, if it's GMAC, if it's Ryan Staub, whoever, I don't think it's going to be Ryan Staub, you're going to have a veteran offensive line, a 1,000-yard rusher, 2 800-yard receivers, a tight end that is a true X factor, in my opinion, Ethan Davis. You're set up for some success. And so much different situation than when Nico stepped in 2024. Nico was the number 1 overall prospect, recruiting class. Everybody knew who Nico was when he was a sophomore in high school. Like, by the time he actually was the starter, it was like, golly, it feels like this guy's been here a decade. He didn't step into as good of a situation. Now, he had a defense that had his back, and that's why Tennessee went to the playoffs. So, on the defensive side, he was farther along. We'll see how much improved Tennessee's defense is. It's not going to be – it doesn't take much to be better than what they were this last year. But I do think that that's going to be a comfort for whoever is the starting quarterback, these receivers, veteran offensive line, and a 1,000-yard rusher beside him.
Well, I think if you can do that, consistently run the ball, which you're right. Heupel, it's the passing game. The key to their offense has always been running the ball wherever he's been, because then the deep shots, like Joey, he had an arm. He wasn't afraid to let it rip, and they had guys to go get it. And I can guarantee you from seeing George play and seeing Faizon play live, they can both throw the ball down the field. I can't speak to Ryan Staub, but I think that'll take care of itself. When we come back, I want to ask Eric about the schedule a little bit more, the back end, and I also want to talk about the defense a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to be the 23 defense. I'm not saying it's going to be 24 defense, but where should they expect things? Because year 1 for the new coordinator, do they have the pieces to make it work? That's next right here on this crossover Locked On Vols and Locked On the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda, moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what is on the screen. Since we're talking Vols, it's pretty straightforward. Josh Heupel, the head coach, has a very big decision to make with the quarterback position. It's unfortunate for Joey Aguilar, but his college career has been ruled null. He's done. Now there's a situation. They've got this big battle. Does he go with the guy that's at least been in his system for a year in George MacIntyre, or does he go with the young guy, Faizon Brandon? Maybe it's a combination. He's still got other decisions to make too on how to make the personnel all work together. Josh Heupel is a very good football coach, but he is certainly going to have his work cut out for him. These kinds of situations remind us of what it takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the field, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put the same passion into every model, highlights that make the real. What it took to get there, it makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business thrive and move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move, because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your job post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria. Skills, certifications, their experience, their location. Maybe it's a combination, whatever works for you and your company. If you're hiring, it's also about saving time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches and not worrying about what's going on with your day. You need to be working to help your company make money and not about everything else going on with the minutia of hiring. And in the last minute or so that I've been speaking to you, there have been 27 hires on Indeed worldwide, according to their data. Listeners of this show will also get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get the job premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, let's talk a little more about the schedule here for the Tennessee Vols and a little bit about the defense. Obviously, you're going to try to protect your young quarterback. Again, whether it's GMAC, whether it's Faizon, whether Staub gets some reps, who knows? But you're going to try to protect them the best you can. Give me somebody, just like I mentioned on the offense, maybe a guy that is next up. I don't care if it's first, second, or third layer of the defense. Who's somebody you think this spring it's really important that young man takes that step forward to help the Vols on defense?
Yeah, it's a good question. Tennessee went out and got a bunch of veterans to come in and play defense this year. So, stepping up into a new system is paramount for TJ Metcalf at safety, Kayan Lee at corner, to pair with Ty Redmond, who played a ton last year. DeSean Lane from Penn State at safety as well. Idris Farouk, a safety that started last year, certainly had some whiffs, certainly had some learning moments, but I think it's going to be a pretty good ball player. But now he's got some help. Like, he doesn't have to play 800 snaps a game. He can be in a 3-man rotation at safety and play, 400 snaps a season or something. I think that'll help him in his progression as a young guy. I think in this conversation, you got to look up front. Chaz Coleman, Jordan Norman coming in. They've got to be hits on the edge. Tyree Weathersby's a guy that's been a veteran here. Was way back when, he was a part of the class of 24, I think. And, he was in line as a true freshman getting here in the summer to play significant snaps. Then he got hurt, missed his freshman season, was buried on the depth chart the next year, came back this year, had a role. He's going to have to step up significantly on the other side, playing an edge position for Tennessee. In the interior, I think there's a lot of young defensive linemen. Well, exterior, Marion Dye, defensive lineman, he's going to have to step up big time. Some of these young defensive tackles like Isaiah Campbell and Ethan Utley, who were here last year. Then you got a loaded room of linebackers. They got to play better, but, there's experience. Arion Carter, Jeremiah Thielander, Edwin Spillman. You bring in Amari Campbell from Penn State. You add in TJ White and Braden Rouse as young guys. I like the collection of talent here, but I think when you're talking about young guys that got to step up, it's on the defensive line. Marion Dye, Ethan Utley, Isaiah Campbell, Christian Gass, who came here to play Leo in the old system. He stayed. He was the only Leo that stayed, and he's got to put on a ton of weight to fit in this new system. So I think there's some guys that got to take some steps this spring.
Well, on the back half of the schedule, all those teams that play again, whichever guy it is or guys, if it's Faizon Brandon, George MacIntyre, etc., they'll have film out. And then in the back half, after they play, go through that tough early slate, they have a bye. They get Kentucky at Neyland, but then they have back-to-back games at A&M. They have LSU at Neyland, and they finish against Vandy on the road. I think that's where the defense is really going to be important, Eric, because you're going to scheme against the court. No matter who it is, the starter, you're going to see that film and you're going to adjust. We see this all the time in college football with first-year starters. Once the film's out, and it's the same at the NFL level, to be honest, teams adjust to you. What do you think of the schedule on the back half? I think it's pretty standard SEC. It's not like it's easy, but Kentucky, first-year head coach, Will Stein, I think he'll do a good job there. But, I mean, if you don't beat Kentucky, you and I will probably have a podcast that week. It is not very fun for a lot of reasons, and Tennessee fans will certainly be interesting on the message boards over at VolQuest and everywhere else. But the A&M game, I think, is a great I don't know if it's a true indicator, but it could be. If you're even competitive with a young quarterback, because Kyle Field is nuts, I think that's important. And then LSU, I mean, it'll always be the Lane Kiffin Bowl anytime he comes. I don't care what team he's coaching. Vols fans always have a little something for him, throwing batteries at him or whatever it is that week. What is your take on the schedule with everything there? Because the back half, I have no idea what to expect once that film is out on the young guys.
Yeah, and I mean, how do those young guys improve or progress throughout the year? Let's go look at Florida a couple years ago, and they had a 5-star young quarterback, and boy, once he got his chance, and you had Graham Mertz that actually got hurt in the Tennessee game, and forced his hand. They had to play him the rest of the year, and I mean, he was really good, had a couple of wins and everything, and then it was a sophomore where he was just really not good. Can one of these young guys take steps in that direction? I don't know. We'll see. Kentucky, as you mentioned, I mean, they on the road at South Carolina. South Carolina is really interesting. That's the week before.
Yeah,
South Carolina is really interesting, or before the bye. You got a new OC quarterback that's as talented as anybody, but can you put it together? Great pass rusher. Now or never for South Carolina. Beamer's going to be fired if they can't figure it out this year. Last time Tennessee played down there, it was horrible. They got knocked out of the playoffs. They got demolished, and your quarterback tore his ACL. That's going to have a lot of storylines. But yeah, Kentucky, I think Tennessee should win on tout alone. Kentucky, for the longest time, what Tennessee was to Florida is what Kentucky is to Tennessee. Tennessee's kind of, had its hand pretty well with Florida here of late under Heupel, but that Kentucky still can't break through. So you should win that game. A&M's going to be so tough. Playoff team, returning quarterback on the road. LSU, I'm so intrigued to see what LSU is going to be. I think they're obviously going to be good. Tons of talent. I had tons of talent this year. What do they look like? How do they come together in year one with Lane Kiffin? What do they look like towards the end of the season? Probably much better than what they're going to look like at the beginning of the season, so that worries me. So I think those two games specifically, A&M and LSU, are going to be so challenging. And then Vanderbilt, I don't know what Vanderbilt's going to be post Diego Pavia. I don't. And it's I think Clark Lee's done a really good job there. I think they've taken steps. Obviously, they're a better team, but you can't just act like it's not just Diego Pavia. He was that team, so he's out of the picture now. Where's Jared Curtis? They're going to start Jared Curtis, right? I mean, I would assume. Where is like Faizon Brandon and George MacIntyre? Where is Jared Curtis the last game of the regular season? I don't know. And then how good is his team around him? Certainly not as good as Tennessee is, right? And I know Tennessee just got their brains kicked in by Vanderbilt in the second half last year, which never happened. So I don't know. That month of November is going to be tough. It should be Kentucky. You need to beat Vanderbilt. It's going to be a game on the West End. That's going to be a home game for Tennessee essentially. A&M and LSU are going to be really challenging there in the midweek. But I want to see where Tennessee's young quarterback is at that point in time, whether it's Faizon or GMAC. How much have you evolved? Where are you? Is it still the same guy? Are you playing both of them? There's just so much we don't know compared to when they go week 2 to Georgia Tech. Then when they finish the year against Vanderbilt, there's so much that's going to happen. A lot of things can change, but there needs to be some growth and evolution, and they need to get better as the year goes along, just like any good football team needs to be.
Yeah, I think that's important. And again, by that point, you're going to need your defense.
Oh, yeah.
To be, I don't want to say the 85 Bears, but again, everybody's going to see those quarterbacks. They're going to have that game film. you're not going to have any newbie stuff. But again, you got playmakers everywhere. You can run the ball.
Yeah.
That defense by then at the end of the year should be more solidified. It's a complex defense. I'm sure most Vol fans have heard about this. But they're going to run a complex defense. By the end of the year, they shouldn't have those same problems. They may need them to win a 21-17 game. I don't know.
We talked about, I think it was last week on the show, or maybe the time before that. Again, I'll make this quick. Jim Knowles comes in, complex system, look at the numbers. Year 1, year 2 is better than year 1, year 3 is better than year 2, all that and more. You know, he stepped into a really good situation at Ohio State. And his first year at Ohio State, they were like ranked 20th in the country. I'll take that tomorrow. Like, that's awesome. He improved to be number 2 in the country and number 1 in the country during this time. But even though Oklahoma State, they were so bad at Oklahoma State. They were bad in year 2. They were good in year 3. They were elite in year 4. Even at Penn State, year 1, who's to know what it could have turned into in year 3 and all that. But Penn State, they were okay. Not good, not bad. They were okay. But again, you compare that to where Tennessee was last year. Tennessee's in the playoff if you're just okay defensively.
100%.
No doubt. And so Jim Knowles comes over, linebacker coach. Anthony Poindexter comes over, co-DC secondary coach. Andrew Jackson comes over, Leo coach to work with Rodney Garner. You bring in 2 Penn State transfers on the defensive line, Amari Campbell at linebacker, Dejon Lane in the secondary. You hope, and new cornerbacks coach Derek Jones they just got. He worked with Knowles at Duke for years. There's a lot of comfort, a lot of familiarity with players and coaches that know Jim Knowles' scheme. So you hope that you can accelerate that growth to where, you know, year 1 doesn't have to be horrible. It can be okay, but you can get better in year 2. But you're at a good starting point. That's my hope. That's the hope of a lot of Tennessee fans. He didn't bring anybody with him to Ohio State. He didn't bring anybody with him to Penn State. He brought a ton with him to Tennessee. We'll see if that changes things.
Yeah, I think that's really important, having that solidified unit, especially up front.
Mm-hmm.
Both those guys are super talented. So good for the Vols. Eric, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Yeah, wherever you get your podcast. If you want to find out more about Tennessee's quarterback competition, Tennessee football conversation in the offseason, and everything else Tennessee related, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at _Cainer, and of course at Locked On Vols as well. We've got multiple shows up per day, and you know, anything Tennessee you want to know about, Locked On Vols is your spot.
Appreciate it, sir. You can find the Portal Podcast all the same places you can find Locked On Vols. This has been a crossover, Locked On Vols and Locked On the Portal.